You know, recently one of my creative friends said, I just think about art all the time. So, that's how I know that I'm supposed to be an artist. It's pretty slack that I still laugh at that, but sorry, that's a really stupid idea. A lot of people do this. They delude themselves into thinking that they're doing things towards their goals by simply thinking about it. Sorry, you ain't doing shit if that's all you're doing. Studying is different. Studying's fine. That's a type of thinking, I guess, but if you're just sitting there daydreaming, that's all you're doing. Now, I understand that look, you will not get a bigger defender of shut up, The Secret had some good messages in it than me. But that is not one of them. Look, there is a time and a place for visualizing your future. It's called 5 minutes a day. The rest of the time you should be moving towards it. There is a really good breakdown in self-help that you learn about this, which is that you should, for every 1 hour that you're studying, you should be doing 3 hours of practice, because everything in life is a skill. You know when you had one of those basketball hoops on a garage if you came from suburban Australia? I'm guessing if that's the case, you had some dog that was part Staffy on the outside going, which you probably always go, shut up, Marcus! Mum, bring him inside! But you know how you sucked at balls for a long time? What happened after a while? You stopped sucking balls and you sucked less balls at balls. You know? After a while, from going, it started going in more and more. What is most of that? A lot of that is muscle memory, but also it's just you figuring out distinctions in your mind, so your mind connects with neuroconnectors that make it auto-adjust, so it understands what it's supposed to be doing in that situation. But the only way that you could do that is kind of like that movie Pacific Rim. You have to get in line with the robot. So a lot of people think that if I'm just thinking about what I'm doing, instead of actually painting paintings, I'm just thinking about paintings a lot, or I look at other paintings, that is the same as action. It is not. And they're like, I'm just getting inspiration. A lot of people delude themselves into thinking that they're getting inspiration, when really all they're doing is just a fancy version of procrastinating. There's ups and downs to procrastination as well. Another video. This one, let's just focus on this idea that ideas count. They do, to a degree, especially if you're in a creative field. It's good to discuss ideas, and that's what melds into it. But what happens after you meld those ideas is that you're supposed to implement them somehow. Do you get that point? No, you don't, do you? That's why you're watching this at the moment instead of working on your art. Because this is all that happens when I wake up now. All of this is just habit. This is the other thing about getting into the action of habit. It itself becomes a habit. So as soon as I wake up in the morning, everything on my day is just geared towards making more content. That's all I ever think about now. All of this stuff is just like, I'm just looking for inspiration. No, the inspiration's in me, because I'm a genius! No, but the thing is that you don't have time to do it after a while, because then you realize, oh my God, there is actually so much that you have to be doing. This procrastination is not an option. If you want to continue having a creative job, you have to constantly be creating. And you throw a lot of things at the wall. Believe me, you throw a lot of things at the wall that do not stick. That's part of it. And then you're supposed to draw, the soul callous that is when people go, that shit, you suck. You're supposed to just be able to go, thank you, sir, may I have another? And keep moving through the shit. That's what has to happen. You only get that. Look, you can study ways to how to make yourself feel better. And I've done that to a degree that is honestly not warranted by the average human being. Even if they have anxiety disorders, I've probably read more on that subject than you have, and I don't even have anxiety. But the thing is, it is a form of procrastination. So remember that. Just even write this down. For every 1 hour that you're studying in your field, you should be practicing in it for 3 hours. How much did you do today? Obviously, this is not an excuse for you to not read because, I didn't do that stuff. You should be studying for an hour a day. But how much are you actually implementing what you're studying? Because this is the thing, you know what I think that delusion is, of people just going, I'm just studying for inspiration. What are they saying? They're scared. They're scared little bitches. That's the truth of it. Because if they weren't, they would actually be trying to create art, wouldn't they? Or whatever you're trying to do in your life. I don't know what you're trying to do. Frankly, I don't care. No, but I'm sure whatever you're doing is great. Probably somebody in there just being like, I'm going to try and reopen Blockbuster. I think it's time is again. People are getting bored of Netflix. But what are you actually doing towards it? So this whole idea of overthinking things, this is a trap that a lot of people get into. And when you see a lot of these things in fields where people just go, look, the success rate is really low. I get it. I understand there's a lot of genetic factors in that, but not as much as you think. You can push yourself into being successful in any field. I truly believe that, unless, there's some unfortunate problems that I don't really want to get into at the moment. It'll just go dark and then there'll just be a bunch of comments and just be like, put your hand aside over a huge comment war. I've had enough of that in the past few weeks for a bit. I just need to rest, okay? But to a degree, you are capable of doing basically whatever you want to do if you study hard enough and you push towards doing it. Now, a lot of people just trick themselves and they believe that, this is all the connections, or I just wasn't talented enough. But the reality of this situation is you just didn't want it enough. You didn't want it enough to develop a psychology that was able to push through all of the rejection. So when you're overthinking, what are you actually overthinking about? At the core of it, it's fear. Even though this is an old 80s expression from self-help, but is there anything truer than this? There's two basic emotions, love and fear. Obviously there's that Donnie Darko phrase where he just goes, there's more complex than there's more emotions, but don't you think that a lot of emotions, because it's part of the reptilian brain, is just based in that, someone's trying to eat me! And that's what people start deluding themselves into. Somebody's going to sit there and look at my heart and go, that's it. Oh my God, I'm going to die. That's what's happening in your brain. So you don't give it the chance to do that. The way that you choke that part is by doing action, because once you're doing it, you don't have time to be scared. When you're up on stage, you might be sitting there jittering and being terrified, but it is nowhere near the fear of when you're walking up on stage. Actually, even people booing you. And believe me, I've been in that situation more times than I'd like to admit. Twice. And then after that, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. But you find other ways. Obviously, you shouldn't be going to pubs if you're doing stand-up where everyone's trying to watch greyhound races and then you come up and be like, what's the deal with sneakers? Obviously, everyone's going, shut the fuck up, God! But this idea is that if you're not moving towards your goals and you're procrastinating, a lot of that is just stemmed in fear. There's only one way through that, and that is to take action. Now, I've given you all the tools before in this video in this video series, I should say. But God, it's getting into a long series, isn't it? It's like the first few episodes, I don't know, British Office. Now we're just into the American Office of season 25. But obviously, you excite yourself into writing. So you write down all the reasons as to why you want it, and then your brain goes, oh, okay, and then it gets supercharged and moves towards it. So you can write down the reasons for why you want the goal that you want. That's the first point. But the second point is to understand this concept. And I want you to write it down. If you're in your head, you're dead. In every situation. And this is particularly true in my situation. So feel sorry for me on my channel. Like the video, but I want you to just think about being a comedian for a second, all right? Put yourself in my shoes. No, but the thing is that obviously a lot of my job is to communicate, and obviously a lot of the time I'm constantly stuttering or just stopping a sentence halfway through as I am at the moment. But why is that happening? Because you start retreating in your mind to think of something more impressive to say. As soon as you just sit there and vibe and groove on things, it kind of just comes out better. And people kind of just forgive the fact that you have a stupid vocabulary. It's just because people just kind of feed off the energy, man. That's the only way to put it. This is true in almost every field, even in think tanks. Even in think tanks. A lot of the time they'll sit there and go, lunch, instead of actually thinking. The actual action of processed thought. A lot of that is just based off of just going like, oh God, this paper's too big. What's that again? Fear. So, when you say this, I see this comment all the time of people just going that like, oh yeah, I'm just getting inspiration for things, or yeah, I'm looking around into it. Are you studying? Are you studying? Study is reading academic books, or books from experts, or people that have walked the walk. If you're just looking at the art, or you're just looking at something that is in your field, but you're not figuring out the mechanisms as to how that is the way it is, not study. That's just procrastination. And furthermore, on top of that, you will notice this pattern successively in every field. The people that took massive action, say Beethoven, classic example. He did 10 times more work than his contemporaries. That's why he's remembered. A lot of his other contemporaries made really good music, but he made every now and then this stroke of genius, and that's because, as Thomas Edison said, 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration. It's just going, there's an idea, there you go, just constantly shooting off on the wall, and then when one doesn't work, just go, hey, look over here, shooting off another one. That's the process. It's manic, it's messy, it's supposed to be that way. Because the thing is, if you make 100 ideas and someone else just does one, what if that idea sucks? What if it's a failure? What if in that entire time, the other person shot off 100 different ideas, they just did one idea and it didn't work? That's usually what happens. When a lot of these creatives just go, I poured my heart and soul into it. You poured your heart and soul into one demo. You poured your heart and soul into an LP, while other people were just shooting off albums until one of them just went, yeah, that one's your #1 record, yeah? That's how it works. You just have to take massive action. The lie in this society is that information equals power. That is potential power. It helps you make more educated decisions for the future, and that's why you should just be reading and studying and going, oh, okay, on with my day now. Oh, that's how you shoot. Right, okay, yeah, okay, just aim to there. Okay, I'm making a bit of target. So that's the way that it works. You still have to practice shooting because you get the muscle memory from it if you think you go, ding now! And then also on top of that, because you just kind of, your brain recognizes at a certain point that, oh, that's where the bird is. Oh, it's pretty slack that I'm just sitting there. This is how you kill albatrosses. Don't worry, there won't be any curses related to that. So, do you get what I'm saying? This is your homework. Write down how much of the day you were moving towards your goal, how much action you actually took today. How much of it was action? How much of it was legitimate study? How much of it was just bullshit thinking? Overthinking, as I say, because that's the phrase that we need to get drilled into our heads. If you're in your head, you're dead. You will come up with more and more excuses to not do it. As soon as you start doing it, your brain thinks, oh shit, how do I keep this train going? Because that's how the brain works. It just likes to continue doing what it's doing. So if it's just sitting there thinking of excuses, it'll come up with more excuses. It'll come up with more things that it needs to look into for inspiration. But if it's moving towards a goal, it stops all of that. It just goes, how do I stay on this bike? That's how the brain works. I'll see you next week. Press the like button. And also subscribe while you're at it. Be nuts! See ya.